Alright, so for today, we'll be discussing Little Fires Everywhere. I just want to say this show was phenomenal. And you want to know why it was phenomenal? The writer's room, full of women. Executive producers, women. Show is centered around women. Like, come on, Reese Witherspoon. Come on, Kerry Washington. Come on, Liz. Like, y'all didn't have to, but thank you. And I just feel blessed to be able to see Hollywood changing where we can hear women's stories from the perspective of women. I was watching one of the extras they had on Hulu. They were talking about even the little details like Elena measuring out her cup of wine, Elena getting on the scale and making sure she was weighing herself every day and figuring out her numbers. Like little things like that usually don't happen in the writer's room and usually don't come to the stage. And so they did phenomenal with this piece, exploring race, um, class, exploring that ideas of motherhood, exploring being a parent, and they've done so well with it. I'm just amazed. So how this is going to work, I'm going to go over some of the major themes I noticed, how great they were, and then I'll go into some more details, probably some spoilers if you haven't seen it. So I'll let you know when you need to pause if you haven't watched it all, but definitely go check it out on Hulu. It is a great show. All right, so first big thing, motherhood, right? It is the center, focusing on Elena and Mia's stories. But there's also other stories going on, you know, like the story of Mei Ling and having this adoptive mom as well. So I think there's a lot of negotiating motherhood and also non motherhood. And so I'll explain what I mean by that. So thinking about Elena, she settled down with Bill. That wasn't the life she wanted. And then she had 3 kids. She didn't want a fourth, but she went against getting an abortion because of her conversation with her mom and how you can see this in her as well. But everything that they fought for was to show that they were liberal and that they were moving with the times, right? So fighting for civil rights, fighting for women's rights, for abortion. But that wasn't something that they would do, right? So it's making sure people know that, yes, on the surface, here I am out here advocating for y'all, but I don't want you in my house, right? Like, I don't want to break bread with you, but I'll make sure that you have something, you know? And that's that entitlement, that's that white saviorism coming through. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Elena didn't get an abortion and she ended up mostly hating herself, but she turned it into a hate for her daughter. And that was so hard to see that Izzy was experiencing this hate and eventually, you know, like it's really there. Then we have like Mia. Mia, you know, never having sex and having a child as a surrogate. And that's just so wild because she's never experienced um, physical sex, but has now had a child. And so the attachment she has there is very interesting. Thinking about Mei Ling and having an adoptive white mom, and this white mom saying she's mine, and not even thinking about the character says in one of the little fireside chats that Kerry Washington has on her page, not even thinking about how, as an adoptive mom, that it can be a shared relationship and not a this is my child and it's no longer your child. And so thinking about that and how her Asian identity was not being prioritized. Like, yes, she is Asian, and it's so cute we have an Asian child, but they weren't learning about her culture, and they weren't going to make that a priority. So, even coming back to lastly, thinking of not motherhood. So, we have Lexi, and Lexi deciding to get an abortion. And well, I think when Elena found out there was parts of Elena that was like resenting Lexi because Lexi was able to do something she wasn't able to do um, mentally and emotionally because of other things. And I think that was what really kind of set her off. Not that she was already all off, but I think that was her last straw with Lexi was like, what? And I think that moment when she was telling mom, she's like, I'm not perfect, I had an abortion. And her mom said, yes, you are. And some of it was definitely like, you are my only child left that I need you to remain perfect. You need to be perfect. But also, I think she was saying, you are perfect because you were able to make the choice that I didn't make and that I wanted to make. And that was very hard to reckon with, especially when you now have a child and you've made that decision and you have to make a decision to love that child because they're here. So it explores a lot of really deep things about motherhood. Yeah, whew, that was just so beautifully done, and you could see it in everything. I think I've already did some spoilers, so I'm gonna just have to put spoiler at the beginning of this whole thing. But who started the fire? Little fires everywhere. Why it's called Little Fires Everywhere? There was little fires everywhere started in that house by multiple people. They burned down the house. Now, I saw where Izzy was going. Izzy was mad, right? Izzy was mad. Her mom said, I didn't want you. Like, literally, I don't want you. And Lizzie was starting to burn down the house, and all her siblings came in there like, whoa, like, chill out. And when her mom said, I don't want you, they were like, are you serious? Go chase after her. And Elena made a decision right there because she already knew she was in the wrong. But she made a decision as an adult to act immature and like a child and not chase after her own child. And that was the worst decision Elena could have made. Like at that point I was like, there any bit of sympathy you had for Elena was chucked out the window. She lost about all of it when she told Pearl that about Mia's whole situation. But anything you had left for her, of her picking the wrong life, of her getting talked out of having the abortion, it was gone because she let her child go. And the kids had had enough, especially Lexi. She talked about, I'm not perfect, mom. I cheated on my essay. I used Pearl's story to get into Yale. I also used Pearl's name on my abortion. I used Pearl. And Lexi had had enough. What I will say though, Trip and Moody, like you kind of understood why they were upset, but not as much. Like with Elena specifically. They were mad at Pearl, but then they were kind of mad. Oh, you know what? I know why they were mad. Because Elena chased them out. That's why. Mia and Pearl left because Elena told them they needed to leave. And Pearl was Moody and Trip's whole world, which I think also needs to be dissected because suddenly this black woman's here and now y'all are all like, give me Pearl. What's that about? But anyways, that's why they were upset. And so they all started that fire. And Elena finally took control and said, it was me. It was me who started these little fires everywhere, destroying everything in her path. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment of realization. I think I was longing for a little bit more, but I think it's because we're so used to happy endings and everything making sense. And this told us, you might not figure out where Izzy went, and that's okay. And you see Pearl and Mia starting this recollection. Um, and they were finally reunited with her family. And where could that take them? Maybe to her father, her actual father. It might come to that. But this show was so beautifully done, and I think it was a moment in history to be able to see women take up space in this way. And they owned the space that they were in. There was no doubt that this was their space. And Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington did amazing on that. And even thinking about little Mia and little Elena, like, they really, really owned their roles. And I'll give a shout out to Tiffany Boone. She studied Mia. Like, every facial expression, every gesture. Like, she was in her character. She was in her bag. Period. So hats off to Tiffany Boone for becoming young Mia in such an easy way that we are able to connect. So I'm obviously, y'all see that. I just really appreciated this show. It was beautiful. It was so amazing, and I hope to see more beautiful, beautiful shows and productions like this. So that is my review of Little Fires Everywhere. All right, y'all. I need to talk about the reads that happened throughout this show. Like, reads. There was a lot, but I'm about to read the one that happens with Kerry Washington and Lexi after she has gotten the abortion, and she writes down Pearl's name. One, she could have wrote down any name. She didn't have to write down Pearl's name. And of course she chose Pearl because she knew Pearl wasn't connected to her white friends and that this wouldn't get out to white people. But basically, let me go back because I love this read. I really did. So Lexi is like sitting there and she's like, did I make the right decision? Like asking Mia, like, was it the right choice? And we already know how Mia is. Mia don't put up with nothing. She's just kind of like, I understand that was a hard decision. However, my child comes first, right? And so here she was when she was like, what do you think? Did I make the right decision? She said, I think my daughter skipped school to help you, and you thanked her by using her name and then demanding that she take care of you. I spent 2 months cooking your dinners, working in your house. You never so much as uttered a thank you. And now you want more? Pearl may love to give and give to you, but I do not. I'm done. And then she's like, I didn't have anywhere to go. And Mia says, you had plenty of places to go and plenty of people who care. You have no concept of what it's like to not have anyone. Don't insult your own intelligence by pretending otherwise. When you're done, wash out your bug. For once. Carrie. Whoever was in the writer's room, thank you. Like, thank you. Because let me just dissect this really quickly. Carrie's talking about how she was working in their house and she had never said a thank you. And now you want my opinion. Now you're asking for my labor. This is what happens all the time with Black women. They are asked to do emotional labor. I'm thinking about Tabitha Brown that was just on Twitter and how people were spilling out their emotional things that were happening in their lives to her, a Black woman who they don't know and just became their nurturer. Like, why are we always required to do the emotional work for you? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Anyways, she says that, and she says Pearl has the choice. She can be in your life if she wants to, but that's not my responsibility anymore. I'm not here to call her you, dear, Mrs., ma'am. And then she was like, oh, nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Because me understands nowhere to go, right? And in her privilege, she has so many places to go. And that was even a metaphor for life, right? Like, you have so many choices, right? And I don't. And some of that I will say is Mia's fault because of how she made her decisions. But in general, white people are going to have so many more choices. And in the privilege that was radiating through her, she had places she could have been and plenty of people who cared about her. So that's why Mia was like, don't act like you didn't have anywhere to go. And when she said, when you're done, wash out your own mug. Pause for once. She said, listen, I understand this might have been a hard decision, but you've came to the wrong house for sympathy. I'm not going to do the emotional labor for you. And if you're going to be here, you're going to act like us. You're going to take care of yourself. You could have wrapped up the show right there, honestly. Forget the fire. Forget who started the fire. Because